6 p.m. Korean Standard Time, and it's time for GSTL. I am Wolf, with me as Cuddle. We got a pretty fun match coming at us today.
Yeah, a really interesting one here at the GSTL. We currently have Team AZUBU going up against Seoul, and especially for Seoul, it's going to be a very important match since so far this season they are still without a single win.
Yeah, they really have been struggling this season. AZUBU, on the other hand, despite, swirls of rumors, a lot of players leaving the team, they've been doing decently this season. So for them, not as dire of a situation, but they really do want that win today.
Yeah, if AZUBU takes a win today, they will go to the second spot in the league. They will go for the run-up slot here, because currently StarTail is holding second place, but they only have a +2 indicator. So in this particular scenario, if AZUBU is able to take it, then they will be ahead of StarTail.
Yeah, very true. And AZUBU, a team that somehow, some way is still sticking with it. They're really, really good players. So many players retiring just before the season started, just as the season was started. But still, they seem to be making really great decisions when it comes to maps and the players are performing when it matters most.
Yeah. And by the way, I have to correct myself. AZUBU currently has a +3 indicator, which means, StarTail has a +3 indicator, which means that AZUBU has to win with a 2-point advantage to actually tie with AZUBU, and because they won the opening match against Team AZUBU this season, they would then surpass StarTail.
Yeah.
So a little bit of difference there. They don't not only have to win it, but they have to win it with a difference of 2 points.
Yeah, so, a 4-2.
At least.
Yeah. Or, 4-1 or 4-0 is your best case scenario for them to get their indicator up there. But who do you think is going to take it today, actually?
The thing is, usually I would say, okay, Seoul has a really good chance. If you look at the player roster, they have a really sick lineup, especially with players like Trap and Deer. They're always very strong. Hyber did well this season, and just in general, he's very unpredictable.
Right.
He came out last for the team quite often. But for some reason, in the team leg, they just don't get their points.
Yes, they're not getting their points, they're not getting their wins, and maybe it's because there's a certain level of predictability to these teams, or to these players, I should say. Here are our results, by the way.
Might definitely be a reason, but we're going to find out today. The results, of course, from our previous matches. StarTail was going up against FX Open, and it was a pretty clutch match where Linux suddenly made things interesting again after StarTail took the lead, taking wins against Curious and Life, and then going up in the last game, Avenge, who once again proved to be Linux kryptonite.
Yeah, Avenge taking a pretty sick win there. Just very strong Void Rays.
Yeah.
Void Rays were tough.
The thing about Avenge is that apparently against Linux, he completely has Linux numbers, and against Zerg, he is just so strong. Here, if it once again, StarTail currently, as mentioned before, with a +3 indicator, and AZUBU therefore has to win it today with a 4-2 to make sure that they will take the second spot in the rankings. FX Open and Seoul all the way at the bottom, which also means that if Seoul wins today, they will at least surpass FX Open.
Yeah, no matter what the score is, if they win, they will pass them.
Yeah, but once again, it's really surprising to me. If you think about it, it's just such an amazing team that Seoul has here. And of course, you can always talk a little bit about the predictability. But at the same time, they have 7 players in their roster. AZUBU has 9. We have Axima Acer with 7 as well. So it should not matter all that much. Yes, you know who the best players are, and you can prepare to a certain extent. But especially that Protoss players not doing as well as in the individual league is a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah. Deer is somebody that you would expect to be nearly unstoppable. One of the interesting things to me is they seem to be relying on Hyba as their last player every time, but I don't think they need to. I think they could actually use one of their Protosses as the anchor for the team today, and I think that would be maybe a choice that leads to a better victory, because their Zerg player, Hyba, he's kind of a one-trick pony in a lot of ways.
He's a very aggressive player, that's definitely true. On the other hand, we have Team AZUBU with a really well-rounded lineup. Symbol, who's currently in Code B, he dropped out of the Challenger League and also the Premier League, so must be pretty disappointed these days. He was always the pillar of the team and quite often the last man standing. Now they have to rely heavily on Supernova as well, but of course they have other players that they can always send into the matches, as for example Senna, who we have here currently on screen. And a pretty decent lineup just in general, even after the players that left the team, as you already mentioned before.
Now, we did have a roster change. It appears that Austin Powers has joined Seoul. I saw him just a moment ago.
Well, I can only tell you one thing, that Symbol for once was not really happy to be in camera this time, because what the Korean commentators were of course talking about is that he not only lost in the Premier League, but then lost against Sorry in the Challenger League, who was probably also very sorry to send Symbol down to Code B.
Yeah, a very unexpected result there. Here's again that small, fairly predictable lineup of Seoul.
Small but sexy.
Yeah, small but sexy, like Austin Powers. You know, this team's chest is just as hairy as Austin, I feel, with those Protosses sticking out.
Ugh.
And you've got...
That's the weirdest metaphor that you ever went for. Okay, I'm really curious how you're going to rescue this one. Go.
I'm just saying, you know, it's like you never know what's inside the hair. And you look at it and you're like, ugh, I don't want to deal with that. But, you know, sometimes you have the right clippers. You can clean it up.
Okay.
And it seems that so far the clippers have been in good supply because Seoul has not yet taken a single win this season.
Wolf weaving a web that apparently he can't really untangle, but he's doing his best. So the last option that he has here is to bring the clippers out and shave it all away.
Yeah.
But be it as it may, Seoul, as already mentioned, with a really decent lineup. And the Protoss players are, of course, the ones that stand out here. But Haiba is one of the players that they can always send into the battle. And one of the Protoss players is starting things up today. It's not Trap, it's not Diet. This time they're sending Huang Xing in as the first player.
Yeah.
For Team AZUBU, we have Sleep. So we have a PVZ as our opening match today.
Yeah, the choice that's not Huang Xing, I think, is a good one. Sleep is also a player, I think, fits the bill for being a starting player, just simply because he's a decent player when it comes to being an all-around player. You know, in the weeks past, he was preparing for individual league matches that really skewed which matchup he was good in and which one he was focusing on. But now that that's kind of passed, I feel like he's a good starting player.
I don't really think that they were hoping for this matchup. It's not really the matchup where Sleep was able to just leave an impression just recently. So on Whirlwind here, I don't know. Sleep makes a lot of sense to send out on Whirlwind as a Zerg player, but going up against the Protoss is tough for him. It's not the matchup where he is very comfortable, and I feel that Seoul was actually hoping for him being the starting player, or for a Zerg being the starting player against Huang Xing, who has a really good track record against Zerg in general.
Makes sense, and you know, it's reasonable for him to expect they wouldn't send a Protoss because it's obviously, you know, they have two Protosses they don't want to send early. Usually they want to send those later. And Huang Xing is not a player we've really seen this season. So for them to expect a non-Protoss player is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, Huang Xing is actually someone who I really want to see now, because he was, for example, at DreamHack Bucharest, where he got a couple of really impressive victories against Protoss players, Zerg players. But all those were foreigners, so we always have to make a little bit of a distinction here between the foreign players and the Korean ones. The Koreans usually a level above, I would say. And against Koreans, Huang Xing has not looked that convincing in the recent past. We don't have too many games that we can actually look at here. So he has to prove himself today against Sleep. Definitely an obstacle that he can overcome, but it's not going to be a push-out.
Thank you guys for coming down. Always great to have people here.
That was
hey,
too
man.
quick. I couldn't read all of that.
I think it just said, hey man, with like a J instead of an H, so I assume that they're from Sweden. That would be my assumption. Is that feasible?
Don't ask me if that's Swedish, but they could very well be European.
It could also just mean hedge man. And it's a meaning of a word I don't know.
I couldn't read anything of that, to be honest.
All I saw was
a little bit too fast with it.
EJ and hello, Sydney. I know these people are from Australia.
Yeah, we already had that a little bit earlier when we had the Korean caster trying to find out desperately where exactly they are from. He was going for Chinese first, and then at some point he came up with Sydney. Not with Sydney, but with Australia at least. So it was quite funny.
He did eventually get there.
Yeah.
He was found the truth.
Took him a little bit.
Well, we have a lot of fans in the studio today from a lot of different places, so that's always exciting to see. Going back to our match again, I think that this first game is really going to set the pace, because if Huang Xing is able to take the win, I think that's going to be something that AZUBU is really not expecting and going to be easily prepared for. I think they might be sitting there going, oh, we didn't really expect this guy to be doing so hot. I looked up his stats. He's not doing so well in Korea.
I'm really interested to see what exactly what's gonna happen when we have, for example, Huang Xing going, Sleep. Let me just rephrase that. If AZUBU at some point is going for their Protoss players, we're going to see it then in the booth. Because from an individual league standpoint, the best choice to send out right now with the success that he already had in the Premier League would be Deer. So that was one of the players that I would really like to see today.
Yeah.
But I don't really know how much Seoul is focusing on the Team League. If they really want to come back this season, they have to pull something out today. The coach has to have a master plan here. If they lose again, then it looks like a very hopeless season for them if they don't suddenly in the second part
blow everybody away.
Yeah, blow everybody away and pull 180 off.
Exactly. So today's a pretty almost finalizing match for them, at least for the first part of the season. If they lose here, then I mean they're at the bottom and they're going to be at the bottom. So I'm just curious to see what strategies in the poll. I think we're going to see both Protoss players. I don't know when. I would like to see Haiva come out not last, because he's a great last player. He's a great player. He's very aggressive, though. Strategies become a little bit predictable. And, you know, I'd rather see somebody like Haiva come out third and then have somebody who's a little bit more solid and well-rounded, like Deer or Trap, come out as the fourth player instead.
And at the same time, it's also the question what exactly we're going to see from AZUBU. I would expect Symbol, for example, to be sent out today as maybe the third player. I don't think they're going to go from a Zerg into a Zerg, but I feel that Symbol is going to be one of the players that they will send out today for sure. Not only because he's really strong, but he must be really eager to prove himself.
Yeah.
He lost in the Challenger League, and from that point, he is probably just looking at this as a chance to just show everybody, okay, I messed up in the Challenger League, I lost too, sorry, but in the GSTL, I'm still here, I'm still there, it was a mistake, but next season I'll be back. So that's something that he can kind of showcase today already.
Yeah. And Sleep here in the GSTL all time. He's only 1-3. Doesn't say a lot about him though, because he's a decent player overall. He's great in individual leagues, and he's somebody who's really surprised everybody coming into Heart of the Swarm as being one of the weaker players in Wings of Liberty towards the end, and then suddenly becoming very strong with Heart of the Swarm. But like you said before, this is not the matchup he was hoping for.
Yeah, he will practice a lot for the matchup against Pennant, but right now here we have from Quantic Quangshin. And right now with Sleep going up against him, you know, we haven't seen Sleep in the season at all. Like, he was not sent out once, which was a little bit surprising at times because he did quite well in the individual league, especially against Terran, and then suddenly Terran players went up against AZUBU, but they still did not put Sleep into the booth and tell him, okay, well, listen, do your thing and just take him down. This is the first time that we've seen this season in the team.
Yeah, and he had a little moment of meditation there. Looks like he's pretty focused and ready now. Matching mouse with his team jersey. Colors of the headset also matching. And this is, you know, a shot of the Soul Coach who just cracked a smile there for a second, but he's got to be a little bit stressed about this one. You know, if he has any intention of being invested in this team league, because this is kind of their last chance.
It definitely is, and they have to pull something off here. It's really surprising to me if you just look at the lineup. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I was really expecting Seoul to do much better than they now did. The same goes for FX Open. But if today, somehow, Seoul is able to win this, then suddenly the ranking is going to be very, very interesting. Like, XM Acer lost, we have Startail on 3-1, we have XM Acer on 3-1. FX Open would suddenly be a little bit like endangered by Seoul, so actually a lot of things that could happen. And the second part of the season completely spiral out of control if Seoul takes it today. If not, then we will have a very distinct, a very clear distinction between the three teams at the top and the two at the bottom.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Whirlwind a very big map here, so if Quangshin goes to the late game, I'm worried for Sleep. But Sleep, generally the more experienced player, especially in the booth here, so I'm highly favoring him here, despite the fact this is not really his matchup. Quangshin, though, he seems meditated, he seems ready. If he can keep his wits about him, might surprise us.
Yeah, I really hope that he has a certain build prepared here. He was playing really well in abroad tournaments, but he has to pull it up together today against Sleep. Strong player to face, but not the best in this matchup. Here we go, GSTL, Seoul versus AZUBU. Starting to the top right, we have the Zerg player for Team AZUBU. The starting player today,
AZUBU Sleep. AZUBU Sleep.
AZUBU Sleep. Not really outstanding record in this matchup. We're going to talk about this in just a second. Let's introduce his opponent first. Starting to the top left of Whirlwind in our PVZ opening. It is
Quantic Quangshin.
Let's see what Quangshin can do today. We have not seen him this season just yet. It's actually true for both of these players. Both of them making their first appearance in the Team League in this opening match today. They knew already a couple of days in advance who they would face. They could prepare certain builds for this matchup. And let's see what exactly they're going to pull off.
Yeah, you know, look at this. Quangshin has been something really weird. He made a pylon on the low ground, which indicates that he's probably going to go ahead and get a Nexus first. Had he wanted to do otherwise, he would have already sent the probe to make the forge. So it's funny because most people don't think this build is really very good in Heart of the Swarm anymore. And if he was going to do this, I thought, you know, he was considering a cannoning, but obviously not. Now he's going to start that Nexus, and the Overlord will double-check the pylon, so he's very happy you can see that. So now he knows exactly what's happening.
And by the way, the reason why the Overlord just suddenly turned to the right is quite simple. In case you don't know, the sight radius of the Overlord is actually bigger than the pylon. So at this point, Wang Xing has no idea where actually Sleep spawns, whereas the Zerg player already knows that his opponent is spawning to the top left. So Wang Xing has to scout again. If we would have seen the Overlord, he could already like immediately eliminate the bottom of the map and could say, okay, like it's top right, and then send a probe over at some point. So this is like a pretty good situation here in terms of scouting.
As you can see here, the Overlord definitely able to see a lot more. He does actually verify, though, that it's a Forge going down, because if it was just a super greedy build where he somehow skipped the Forge, or he wanted to cut a cannon for a little bit longer, then he might have wanted to capitalize on that, but he's actually going to send this Overlord also into the main base before there's any anti-air to take him out, so that way he can check for Stargates and other structures in the main once the Cybernetics core is finished.
Yeah, and another reason is also what you already like hinted earlier when you were saying that you thought he might actually go into a cannon opening. If he does not see a Nexus there, then he knows, alright, if he goes for the Forge here, I might get cannon, and I need to send a few units down to my expansion because I started with the hatch first into pool and have to double check if there are any cannons going up. So with the scouting information that Sleep just gathered, he knew that he didn't even have to commit any drones to the bottom of his base, to the natural.
Yeah. We have an interesting case here with the gas for Sleep. He has 100, but he has not started metabolic boost. And it looks like he's going to delay it a little bit here. I don't think he's going for a fast layer, but, you know, the more he waits, the more it seems likely.
Yeah, he's currently actually has like a lot of minerals here, and he could go for the tech. You're absolutely right, but he goes for the third base instead. Pretty normal opening so far in terms of the bases that he takes. Maybe a little bit late even. Usually against a Forge opening, you take your base around the 4-minute mark, so if you look at it, it's nearly a minute late.
Yeah. Kind of weird, because, you know, you mine 100 gas to get the speed, and then you stop, and then you get your hatchery first, and it kind of negates. You get the hatchery slower, and you get your speed slower. It's kind of a middle ground there, but you don't get either of them extremely optimally, so maybe he was just in the mindset of getting speed because he's so used to playing against Gateway Expanse, and then he's like, oh wait, actually I don't need this right away, I need the base faster. Regardless, not too big of a setback for him, but definitely not the most optimal way of transitioning into this.
Yeah. I mean, he's going for the speed now, so that will definitely give him a little bit of safety if there is a move out. The Overlord already moving in and seeing the Stargate. In terms of gathering information, Sleep is definitely doing a great job here. As the Overlord's exactly where they're supposed to be. He saw the tech, he saw the base early, so he can base all of those decisions on knowing exactly what his opponent is going to do. A Zergling at the third base already positioned to find out if there's an early third. So all these things are really well thought out by Sleep and are absolutely spot on. You know, only the timing that we had here for the third base and for the speed was maybe a little bit off.
Yeah. Double Evolution Chambers going up here, going upgrade heavy. And the Phoenixes, he did see the Stargate, right?
Yeah, he saw the Stargate.
He just hasn't seen whether it was a Phoenix or not, but he will find that out very soon. He even goes in here to check very thoroughly. Yeah, he's really wanting to know what it is.
Very meticulous about it, and I actually like it like quite a lot. He sees the Chrono Boost now as well, and moves in with the Overlord once more. And at that time we have... Huh?
A pause, yeah. I think they both pressed pause at the same time, so one unpaused, and then, of course, repaused.
Yeah, he's still at 300 APM and everything, so probably... Can it be a sound issue? I think that would be a little bit too late to be a sound issue. Maybe something with the FPS that he has here. I don't really think that it's going to be an hotkey issue for him.
He's like, I thought
a bit too late already.
I thought they took Voiders out of this game. Like, this is too strong.
I doubt that's it.
Yeah, probably, yeah, you know, I don't know. Maybe he had a question about the map. This is one of those things where you're like, if it was sound, he probably would have had that earlier. If it was a keyboard, it was a hotkey issue, probably would have had that earlier. I'm actually thinking it's hotkeys because he just made a Void Ray, and maybe he has Void Ray set to something different, and he's like, wait a minute, this isn't right, I need to pause. But,
this is, by the way, our admin that you just saw to the left, the very handsome...
You could tell because he's handsome.
Yeah, he's very handsome.
And there's the AZUBU coach looking a little bit stressed, actually.
I mean, the timing for the pause is not the worst thing in the world here. It's not in the middle of the fight or anything like it, so it's just at the beginning when the two build orders are starting to unfold here, like come to terms. So they're just going to talk a little bit and making sure that both of the players are ready to go. It might actually be an issue...
every now and then,
not necessarily with the map, but like I'm not quite sure what the tech guy is actually doing in the booth of the Zerg player right now, since the Soul player actually paused the game.
he might just be giving them the update of why there was a pause. I don't have the observing PC, so I can't see what they said in chat, if there wasn't any chat at all. Sometimes, you know, the wrong map is hosted by mistake because two maps have the same name and one has different stats. Like, maybe they accidentally hosted that new PTR map or something, and he's looking at the stats, and he's like, wait a minute, this isn't right. I doubt it, but we'll get an update pretty soon as we know. It looks like everything's back to normal, and it's just deforming the coach. I have a scratch in his head here, like we are.
Well, they at least know what's going on.
Yeah, I think so now.
We don't know yet. We will probably get the update as soon as the admin was able to talk to the production here. But right now, what we have is, of course, in the opening game, the Stargate opening that we saw here for the Protoss player, for Huangxing. He's going into the Phoenix opening. We didn't see any Spore Crawlers just yet, but Sleep has the scouting information. He's on 3 base currently. He went for the double evolution chamber and can now at any time get the Spore Crawlers and extra queens in the picture.
You know, he may even skip the spores because he saw the Void Ray. So now he's probably thinking, oh, he's doing that Void Ray build where he takes the 3rd base. So that's the last thing that we saw is the Void Ray the Overlord saw the Void Ray being built, and then there was a pause. So the headsets are going back on, which is usually a good indicator that we're going to get back into the game. Gonna make sure it doesn't mess with their hair. And maybe we're not.
Maybe not, since we are now back in camera. We still have no information what's happening there, so really sorry, guys. I guess as soon as we have an update, we will be able to tell you, but right now we have no idea. It looked a little bit like they had something to discuss here. So apparently it was a hotkey setting problem, and the team is currently Huangxing is getting a warning right now.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought. As soon as I saw him build the Void Ray, then he paused, I was like, hotkeys. But we talked about this like 1,000 times. If you're the first player, how do you not have your hotkeys set up properly?
I don't know. Like, the game is going to be continued, so Huangxing currently having a penalty, and, well, we're going to find out what exactly is going to happen from now on. Actually, like, they are starting up StarCraft.
I think they're resuming from replay over there, which means that we probably would be if I had my observing PC today, but look at that.
Like what?
Anyways, I think it's just one of those strange things where you don't have your hotkey sub, but Huangxing looked nervous in the booth. I mean, it was almost like he was in prayer or something, like in utter meditation in his booth before the game started, just sitting there like this with his eyes closed.
Not setting your hotkeys up is going to a soccer match and forgetting to tie your shoes.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing, I feel. So it's a little bit weird.
You didn't bring your shorts? What? Huh? It's like you didn't bring your shorts? What? You know?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, dude, we'll bring some, but like seriously, next time. All right, here we go.
All right, so back to business here. 12 drones actually is the reaction to the Void Rays, which is pretty smart considering he has a fast 3rd, and he knows that Huangxing is going to be taking a fast 3rd of this Void Ray. 3 gateways, though, being added first, so he might actually try to hit a timing here.
He did not know about the Void Rays.
Are you sure? I thought the Overlord saw it for sure while it was building. He never saw it completely?
I'm not sure if he really saw it. Like,
well, now he does, but...
Yeah, now he knows. Whatever I mean, he knows it's a Stargate opening. He saw the Forest Phoenix. He went in with the Overlord. He might have seen it as well. But right now we have him going into the lair tag at the 8-minute mark. The double upgrades here for ground, actually. And at the same time, he's getting those extra queens that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So he can really work quite well against the air units of his opponent. So far, no Spore Crawlers for him, but just droning up heavily. He knows that the only aggression that can come up against him is now coming from there.
This is so strange. He went 1 Phoenix, 1 Void Ray, 1 Oracle, and then he's making now a 2nd Void Ray. I wonder what the Oracle's role is actually going to be here. Probably for a little bit of harass and scouting. It can also be a great Zergling deterrent. Like in this case, I don't think he wants to burn that energy for it, but I guess he might have to. That's strange to me, though, because Queens usually in this matchup can deal with Oracles quite easily.
Yeah, especially when the Oracle could be used for detection. So it's kind of the only thing that I could really come up with at this point. He has only the Forge here for all cannons. He doesn't have a Robo, but maybe he wants to have extra detection.
I mean, the Oracle's great anti-Zergling, as we're going to see here. I mean, it does a ton of damage to Zerglings so fast, but so do Zealots, you know. It's not like its only role is to kill Zerglings, but I guess it could be quite useful for that. Could also reveal the Zerglings as they run away, and then he'll know exactly where they are at all times. So that's something he could also use the Oracle for. We haven't seen Oracles used too much in this matchup, actually, except
Yeah.
sometimes in late game.
I mean, even the detection thing doesn't make, like, too much sense. Like, is there going to be a burrow upgrade right now? If there was a timing, yes, maybe. But for anything else, I mean, it doesn't make too much sense. So far, the Oracle actually didn't do a whole lot. I think it's just to have something at the wall in case there's a very aggressive opening. Keep in mind, he didn't scout too much. So before the Phoenix came out, he had not really a lot of information. So maybe the Void Race just in case there's a Roach attack at the Oracle to help out if there are Zerglings in the ground game.
I'm really curious to see how he's going to use it in the late game, or how things go transitioning even into the mid game here.
Or maybe the hotkey problem was that he actually like pressed it by accident.
Yeah,
Didn't realize.
he was embarrassed he didn't actually found out. Well, Queen's going to work here on the rocks. It's just quick work of those rocks. Rocks didn't stand a chance. You know what's interesting? He's going double Forge, and it's Swarm Host that he's up against, so that Oracle may come very much in handy against the Swarm Host. And with the Spire coming up here, it looks like we're going to see that Corruptor, Swarm Host, Snipey, kill the Colossus, kill the Observer style.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're gonna see. No, but I like that we have a lot more low cost charger game and Swarm Host. It was one of the builds that also Solki used in his matches against Rain. I was very surprised to see how Solki dismantled his opponent there. It was pretty surprising. I thought that Rain would put up a bit more of a fight there.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Well, to be quite fair, Rain made a lot of mistakes that were avoidable. But I was really surprised that he made them in the first place. I didn't expect it. I thought he would absolutely untypical mistakes for him. But being as a Mei, Solki also one of those players who relied on the Swarm Host, so we see that a little bit more popping up against Protoss once again. And the Swarm Host alone will already give him a lot of safety here. He has a couple of them already in the game. He can now just work against all this aggression that's coming at him. But there's another attempted attack on the third, and there are no units over here, so the Zerglings to the rescue.
Zerglings to the rescue, +2 attack is not done yet for those Zealots, and a few Banelings here actually going to help clean up house. I don't think he's really going to be able to attack into the Swarm Host, though. I think the Swarm Host totally blindsided him at first. Now he's trying to get the second Box up. He needs Colossus production. But when it comes to who's really leading the pace of the game, it's definitely Sleep right now.
He's also not using the Oracle for detection. I think it's still alive, but he's going for the robotics, and the Oracle was at no point with the army here. He's waiting. Yeah, the Oracle is still part of his army, but he doesn't use it for detection or anything, so he has no chance of approaching those Swarm Hosts. He's waiting for the Observers here. He might actually not even realize that he has that Oracle right now. I think it's still hovering at the third base.
Yeah, this is a nice little Spine Crawler wall that was not quite ready. With good force fields here, he may be able to actually snipe the hatchery, but there's too many Queens, I think. Is he really going to get this? He's transmuting so much. Spines are finishing here. I think this may be a mistake to try to kill the hatchery here.
Well, he's going to get the hatch, but at what cost? Now the Locusts are moving in, and he's going to lose a few of those sentries as well.
That was close. We called the wrong Nexus, though, and that Oracle is not helping out now. Very late to the party to start to attack. Even Probe's fighting here, and that Nexus is totally gone.
Yeah, that Nexus is going to die. Oh, and he could get so many of the probes as well. Oh god, he's nearly taking all of them down. That was a really great attack, but with another aggression also in the main base at the top right of Sleep, with the War Prisoners swapped in a couple of Zealots, and immediately the Zerglings are trying to take them down, but there's not a lot of ground army. Spine Crawlers going down. Corruptors can only look, not touch.
Yeah, you know, this is a very... Both these guys are really at each other's throats. Going right into the main base, going for run-bys. No direct confrontations. So many Queens. There's Queens, of course, great at also picking off Observers when you go for this Swarmo style. Also transfuses on any type of unit, including your Corruptors. Wow, Queens though lacking some upgrades here. And you know, at first I was thinking that with all his probes, Function is in a terrible spot. He's still not in a good one, but he still has a decent probe count. He's at 56 right now, and his army composition is the right one. He just needs some sort of way to deal with the Corruptors, and maybe that's going to be Storm. He has the Archive, but no Templar.
Yeah, to be honest, I really don't like his position here, just in general. I mean, the opening was very shaky. There was just no... I mean, there was no clear line, like, visible idea what he was doing. He went into Phoenix, but he used... I mean, what was the Phoenix for example? Just selling the idea, okay, listen, I'm building Phoenixes. It was definitely not only a scouting issue since he used hallucinations. Then he gets the Void Ray, can apply a bit of pressure, but the Oracle doesn't make sense. He doesn't even use it for detection later on. It was just there, I guess, to guide that third a little bit or guard it. And didn't make too much sense. I feel these resources would have been spent otherwise much better. And at this point, the creep split alone that we currently have for Sleep is crazy against a Protoss player. I usually don't see that all too often.
Yeah. The Zerglings are ready, poised for a run by here. The Swarm hosts have been relocated, so we can send faster Locusts.
Turtle toss incoming.
Here we go, Fleet Beacon, second Stargate, and I like how he's set up his defenses. He has enough units for the Locusts. He was most of his army to the north, but against the Zerglings he has just a few Zealots and Archons, which are going to be the AoE he needs to defend against the Ling run by. This is not going to happen. Well, you know, he may barely get a few Zealots in, but no, he's too slow.
Nah, he's too slow, and he didn't even use Corruption when he could have used it at any time with those Corruptors, so that would not be an issue. But now he has to defend at the font, and we have a few Void Rays here, but he needs more, and I think his long-term idea is to get Tempest into the picture that they can zone out his opponent. But right now, he's just trying to apply pressure, and the problem for him is going to be to deal with Swarm hosts.
Yep, here's that Archon I was telling you about earlier. Looks like it's just barely enough to clean up those Lings.
19 kills.
You know, you leave just a few Zealots and one Archon over there, or two Archons, and it's going to clean up house. The question for me is, did +3 finish for the Protoss army, or did he lose that forge? Which forge?
2-2 if I'm not mistaken. I think he does, so yeah, 2-2 currently the upgrade for him. But we have no double Stargate is done, and he's building a couple of Void Rays. He has still that army on in the game. We have Sleep with a massive bank on the other hand, and usually what you want to do as a Protoss player is getting this big army and then just attack and overwhelm your opponent. If you get to 200 supply, your army is usually stronger than the Zerg player. But right now, Huangxing is pressured way too much. We have Locusts at the front, sniping buildings, going for the core. At the same time, the Colossi are always in a predicament. If they move out of bounds once, then they're immediately sniped by those Corruptors. And this is just a really dire situation that we have here for Huangxing.
Yeah. Zealots warping in here. The Roach is not with the best upgrades to handle those Lings coming in. He will actually be able to easily focus down that Nexus. I don't actually know if Huangxing can save this. I don't think he can save this base. And if he tries to, then he's going to lose ground here. Again, the Swarm hosts are getting even closer. He may actually try to go for the race here.
At the same time, I want to see more bases for Sleep. He's at 5,000 minerals, and there's no reason not to get a couple of additional bases and guard them with Spines and Spores. You want to have a huge bank so that you can remax, but you don't need 5,000 minerals in a position where you're only one base ahead. If the Protoss player gets in, snipes a base, recalls back, you are starting to be in trouble. So getting a few additional bases would definitely be a nice safety measure here by the Zerg player.
I'll run by here in the main. That charged up Void Ray, not going to do anything but tickle the Zerglings. The Roach, on the other hand, don't want to face him, but no point in time for the past 5 minutes has Huangxing looked like he's in control of this game. Yeah. He's trying to avoid the Zerg's army, but he's always losing ground.
An issue is, though, that the worker supply is currently at 83 for Sleep, and if he does not build Spines and Spores and just use a few of the workers, his army supply is going to stay at 115. And that is exactly the army supply that we currently see for Huangxing. And if he is going up to 200 supply, he will have the stronger army.
Not get anything there with all those Spines. Nice defensive measure here by Sleep.
And they have the Tempest that we were talking about earlier to zone out the Zerg player. So currently the Zerg is in a really good spot, but if he gets this army up, then he might be able to bounce back into this game and have the superior army composition. It's just a matter of economy that is currently holding him back.
What is he doing to this army in the middle of the match? What is he hoping to achieve?
Oh my god, he's getting flanked here. That's what he's doing. And he's losing so many of those Colossi before the Stalkers can blink forward and try to guard them. But he doesn't even care. He doesn't even use Corruption. He's just moving in and snipes everything in his path.
As soon as the Void Rays charge up, he has second thoughts, but otherwise he was looking fine against this. And
could have killed those easily. He had so many, but he didn't even use Corruption.
Exactly. Look at the bank. I mean, we're approaching, 10,000 minerals in total here with almost 4,000 gas. And the bank for Huangxing just isn't there. He has enough economy to remax a few more times, but after that, he's going to be begging for money on the streets. That's how poor he's going to be, because this base over here on the left side of the map is being forced to cancel again by a Ling run by. The multitasking here from Sleep, just quite frankly, is much better in this game.
He's zoning him out completely. He's using those almost every single time to learn to one side of the map and attacks the other. One Tempest is not going to be enough. Oh, he lets it live for some reason. And the one thing that really surprises me is the lack of corruption that we see from Sleep. He could have sniped so many things. Already earlier, could have taken down the 2 Colossi and the additional Void Rays. Now he misses to take down the Tempest, and that can get iffy. But he has a great economy here, and that's what he can use. I mean, at this point, he is nearly 100 supply ahead of his opponent.
Yeah, all these run-bys really starting to take their toll. With the repositioning here of the Swarm was right behind the Spines, making him just safe enough. Archon's being more for it now. He's trying to get more Temple, but he's down to 36 probes. And this army that you see right here is the last one we're probably going to see from Huangxing in this game.
3-3 is also on the way, and here come those, once again, sniping the Tempest. The Corruptor's on the way. But bottom right, the 4th base or the 5th base that is currently attempted to be gold by the Zerg player was attacked. Not taken out though, the Spine Crawlers finish and take down the Zealot.
Yeah, and nice little catch here, but I don't think it's going to be enough to turn the sides. Army supply is still relatively close, like you said, but he doesn't have any more army to build. He can only make a few more Archons, and Swarm Hosts, their Locust cost nothing.
He also lost his 4th base and is not able to rebuild it. There's even an Overlord spreading through the location. And he's just going for it. He knows that he will probably not be able to really bounce back into this game. He has to do some damage right now and at least take down that 5th base, if not a bit more than that. But we have so many of those scrubbers. 18 are moving in, but now they're going for it, sniping over and over again.
The Archons here, the sniping, he's making the fight for most of it. He's intercepting his Archons when he should be leaving those there and intercepting everything else. Now it's too late because the Locusts are there. Those 2 probes are, contemplating actually fleeing, joining the other army.
Link's in the Bane base now as well, and the Protoss player is just looking a little bit lost at this point. He really wants to take down that 5th base, but he can't get a proper angle, and we still have the Swarm Host in a position where they can put the Locusts in. Moving actually to the top right now and exposing that 5th a bit, but the Zerg player is well aware where the Protoss is positioned and is just always making sure that he is in his path.
Even the way that he splits his Swarm Host so that the Locusts come out really in a nice little concave there.
Huang Xing is just fighting a losing battle at this point, and he knows it. He's a little bit desperate. He's really trying to do what he can, but there's only so much that he can do in his position. And with Ling run buys into your main base, I mean, the very fact that they are able to get in there over and over again already shows what kind of situation we have here.
Yeah, Prob's going down. He barely has any gas left there anyways, but he's going to have even less. Burrow is being researched here. Greater Spire is almost ready. How many Broodlords is he going to make with that? Maybe like infinity.
I mean, there was a wall at some point at the Protoss player's natural, but it was taken out by the Locusts, and he never really rebuilt it, so now he has no chance to prevent those Zergling run-bys, and they always put him in a situation where he needs to warp in additional Zealots, and that's not what he wants to do back at home. Whereas in the middle of the map, he's just running away from Locusts the entire time. 3 is nearly completed since the armor upgrade is about to be done, and, I mean, Sleep is dominating him right now.
Yeah. 3-3-2. Soon to have third Carapace upgrade complete. 3-3-3. Tech Loss going nowhere fast. Zealot's not going to be able to break through that Spine Crawler wall. Well, maybe they do, but they're going to be killed right afterwards by the rest of the Zerg army, and there's just so much bank here. As soon as the Zerg army dies once, we make 3 more armies.
There are 22 Corruptors now in the game, so he can actually just easily go for a lot of Broodlords if he wants to, and that's exactly what he's going to do. 8 of them are currently morphing. We still have Locusts, as you can see, he's going to town at the natural. And look at this bank. I mean, he is maxed out in upgrades nearly. He is a 200 supply, and he still has 5,000 gas and about to have 5,000 units as well.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
He's dominating this game.
Sleep's APM is constantly dropping down to like 90, probably scratching his nose and like, yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, I mean, his Locusts are going to work on the tech. This army is all that's really left of Haunch's hopes and scam. I think when he sees his brutes, he's just going to type out. What else can he hope to achieve here?
He does not have the resources to just go for a counter here. He does not have the area of effect that he needs to go up against Locusts. If you are going up against Locusts, you need either Colossi or you want to have Storm. One of the two. You want to have both, actually. So in this situation, he has neither. He only relies on Archons, and Archons alone are just not going to do the trick here.
Yeah, they're not going to get past those Broodlings. They're not going to... Maybe he gets underneath these Broodlords. Maybe. But it doesn't even look like it.
Maybe he takes down the Broodlords, but you know, he's going to lose units in the process, and he can't afford it. Sleep can afford that 10 times over.
Yeah. Broodlings here just going to town on the Zealots, and the Locusts are just continuing to come through here. Looks like he's finally going to get this Nexus, not as if it's mining anyways, but he's just doing so much damage here, and Sleep, he's already won the game.
Sleep has done what I mentioned earlier. He took additional bases. He did not only rely on the 4 that he had, so even if there's now another one taken out, he can always rely on the others that he has. His income is pretty good at this point. He's going for Nidus. He's placing down additional Spine Crawlers. He's leaving nothing up to chance.
He has 3-3-3, so he can almost remax approaches if he wants to. And
Stutter stepping with the Broodlords.
I mean, it's just there's not enough anti-air here. No matter how much the AoE, no matter how many Templar he has, it's just not happening.
We have 50 army supply against 140 at this point, and it is just not gonna happen.
Any unit that gets near those Broodlords is going to get vaporized here.
The problem is not even the army size, it's the composition that we have.
he can't get in. And if he does get in, the Broodlords just turn around and kite. Because there's so many Broodlings, the Stalkers cannot walk. They can only blink. And as soon as they blink, they're blinking into, we're talking probably 50 Broodlings in there. Maybe even more.
Reinforcing with Zerglings now as well. GG, inevitable. But interesting game that we had here.
And I have to say, that game from Huangshin just looked like total freestyle. It didn't seem like there was a big plan. And Sleep, on the other hand, one step ahead the whole game.
I really think the Oracle was just supposed to be a defensive tool against Zerglings.
Yeah.
So you can achieve that also if you get an additional couple of Zerglings in there. I'm not quite sure if you really need to do it. We didn't really commit a lot to the Stargate tech here. I wanted to get that third base up, but Sleep really played that quite well. He could just control it. The Protoss player gave him free reign over the map and he used it. Only thing that I was a bit surprised to see is that he never really used Corruption. He could have won a lot of those battles very distinctively if he just used Corruption on top of sniping Colossi, Mothership Core, Void Race and Tempest. I feel that would have given him even a bigger edge over his opponent and ended the game maybe a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The Swarm Host movements were really nice. He bounced him back and forth a lot of the game, just keeping Huangshin's army off of his back, always making the Spinecrawler walls at his 4th base, at his 5th base, to make sure that there was no way the run-by was going to affect his economy. Even having the Corruptors set to defend against Warp Prisms, and after he killed, I think, 3 Warp Prisms, Huangshin was like, well, I'm not sending any Warp Prisms anymore. Then he kept his Corruptors with his army. Didn't use the Corruption ability, like you said, as much as he could have. But regardless, he won the game. He won it, like, way... I mean, he totally just dominated the whole game.
I mean, his Swarm Host movement was really nice, and of course, scouting was everything in this particular game. He knew immediately when the Protoss player moved out, and his scouting from the beginning was top-notch. So, Sleep definitely with a couple of holes here in his play, but in general, overwhelming Huangshin impressively. So, did actually a really, really good job here, and he has to face the same matchup now once again.
Yeah.
So, we have...
Deer.
Yeah, we have once again Sleep going up against the Protoss, and I think this time we're going to see a very, very different style here. So
Deer's going to show how it's done in this game.
Sleep has to look at this and has to be like, okay, this was the warm-up here, but keep in mind that Sleep actually against Protoss is not too strong. He has a 33% win ratio, and against Deer he lost already with an 0-2. That was in Code S, aka the WCS Premier League.
I want to see if Deer is going to play a similar style, or if he is going to do something completely different. I'm sure they've talked to each other about the games against Zerg. Saying, I'm sure Deer said, hey, if you can't handle it, I'm going to be the guy. And Deer is just a much better player overall.
Before we go into game number 2, we're having a 5-minute break, and then we're jumping back into the second match of the GSTL between AZUBU and Seoul. We're going into Deer versus Sleep, so see you guys in a few.